Great. Thanks, Brian. Okay, good evening, everyone. We're going to begin our meetings here. So welcome everyone joining in person and those joining online to the City of Summerside City Council monthly meeting and planning board and meeting of planning board here for April 25th, 2025. We'll begin with our planning board meeting, and once it's adjourned, we'll move directly into our monthly council meeting. So I'll call to order the meeting of planning board here at 6:05 p.m. Call for a member of planning board to move and another member to second the agenda before you. Councillor Adams, second. Councillor Trenholm. All members of planning board who are comfortable with the agenda, say aye. Any opposed? Hear none. We'll move on. We begin by recognizing that and acknowledging that the land upon which we gather is unceded Mi'kmaq territory. Abogway is covered by the historic treaties of peace and friendship. We pay our respects to the indigenous Mi'kmaq people who have occupied this island for over 12,000 years. At this point, I'll call for any member of council, planning board, or broader council who are joining the planning board meeting to declare a conflict with respect to any item on the planning board agenda. Seeing none, I'll hand this over to Chair of Planning Board, Councillor Darrach. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. First, we visit a recommendation for a preliminary subdivision approval for 0 Darrach Avenue. The purpose is to subdivide PID number 73585, creating 38 lots. Planning Board is required to make a recommendation to Council on this application, and preliminary approval is required by Council before the development can proceed. Background: an application was received from Strategic Holdings, Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 73585 into 38 lots over 2 phases. 37 lots are intended for, but not limited to, single detached and semi-detached dwellings, and 1 lot is proposed for high-density housing, 4 to 24 units. The proposed subdivision and public streets are indicated on concept survey plan prepared by Locus Surveys Limited, drawing number 24348P01, dated March 10th, 2025. The report, as required under Section 3.6 of the Subdivision and Site Development Bylaw, Council Planning Board and the Development Officer shall consider the following general criteria when reviewing development applications under this bylaw as applicable. A, conformity with this bylaw. Staff comment: the subdivision conforms to the Site Development and Subdivision Bylaw. The subdivision layout promotes smart growth, making effective use of the land, and applies to the principle of orderly and following existing development. The development will be subject to city standards. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment: the subdivision conforms to the official plan. The future land use map for the property is a mix of commercial and residential. Should the developer wish to develop the commercial portion of the property as residential, an amendment to the official plan will be required. The proposed subdivision does not directly impact the Parks and Green Space Plan. Both phases generally align with objective and policies under Section 3.4 to foster growth strategies that focus on making Summerside a sustainable community. Special attention should be given to the southern part of Phase 1 and its proximity to the water. There should be considerations for how future developments can accommodate rising sea level and severe storm events. Both phases generally align with objectives and policies under Section 4.1, Development Control. Development isn't leapfrogging or skipping over land and connect to existing infrastructure on the adjacent land to the east. Both phases generally align with Section 5.1, residential, as the proposal includes a mix of housing types. Phase 2 replicates the adjacent development, which is a mix of single detached and semi-detached. The northern part of Phase 1 is designated service commercial under the future land use plan. The history of this designation was to allow the existing motel space to expand. Section 5.5.3 of the official plan explains Council's desire to limit further strip commercial development east of the Gillespie Creek. Their concerns include creating an unattractive gateway, exacerbating traffic congestion, incompatibility with single detached housing, impact to wetlands, and impeding scenic and unique view plane over Bedeck Bay. This development would benefit from a neighborhood commercial use. However, the C3 land use zone does not permit housing, and some of the permitted uses within the C2 land use zone aren't appropriate for a neighborhood development. C, conformity with the zoning bylaw. Staff comment: the subdivision conforms to the zoning bylaw. The zoning map for the property is a mix of service commercial C2 and low-density residential R1. Should the developer wish to develop the commercial portion of the property as residential, an amendment to the zoning bylaw will be required. The northern part of Phase 1 is split between R1 and C2 land use zones. This may create difficulties when trying to establish setbacks and when blending different residential densities. It's recommended this parcel be rezoned to single zoning. Special attention should be given to the proposed development and permissible uses. While C2 does allow for a variety of housing types, it also allows commercial type uses that wouldn't be appropriate in low-density residential neighborhood with no sidewalks, i.e. they may generate traffic levels not appropriate for the neighborhood. D, the orderly and following nature of the development. Staff comment, this development promotes residential growth and is an example of infilling vacant land currently zoned for residential development. E, physical suitability of the site for the proposed development, including avoidance of natural hazards, undue water runoff, or environmental damage. Staff comment, the site is suitable for development. A watercourse and wetland delineation will be required for this property to identify any potential natural hazards or environmental matters. No development is permitted within the buffer or the areas delineated unless approved by the Department of Environment. F, compatibility of the proposed development with the present and future surrounding patterns of streets, lots, and services, including conformity with any city concept plans. Staff comment, this development is compatible with the current and future surrounding patterns of streets and services. The extension of Crozier Drive must be completed to the west side of the intersection of the proposed street running north-south and Crozier Drive. Darrach Avenue must be completed to the west boundary of PID number 73585. A temporary turnaround must be installed to allow for service vehicle turning. G, adequacy of the applicant's proposals for traffic circulation, parking, pedestrian access, water supply, sewage disposal, and storm drainage, including the adequacy of city streets and services to handle increased loads. Staff comment, Darrach Avenue is a local street which can easily handle the expected traffic from this subdivision. Existing volume for Darrach Avenue is approximately 5 to 15 vehicles per day. The estimated capacity for a city local street is approximately 10,000 vehicles per day. Existing volume for a collector street, Water Street East, is approximately 20,000 vehicles per day. And the estimated volume from this proposed subdivision is below. A lot of numbers in there. Do you want CAO? Should I, I'll turn to you. Do I need to read those data that's available? Okay, I won't do that. If anyone does want to know the vehicles per day, they're in there and they're available for review. Essentially, at the end of going over the vehicles per day, it says the existing city street system can accommodate the development's additional traffic. The drainage connection shown to the existing subdivision will require new drainage outlets to the Bedeck Bay drainage basin, as the 450 millimeter diameter pipe available will not accommodate all the drainage shown on the continuing phases of the development. The storm system will need to be designed to accommodate this and meet the city's standards of not crossing the street at long oblique angles to maintain the standard centerline offsets to remain at the curb edge. The closest pedestrian access for this subdivision is at Water Street East and St. Clair Street intersection. Parking for each lot is proposed to be on site. The city's water supply and sewer treatment systems can handle the loading from this proposed development. The developer is to contribute to the cost of the lift station upgrade on Crozier Drive that will service some of this development. PID number 73585, 73544, and a small portion of 72421 can be accommodated at Crozier Drive lift station for the outstanding amount of $142,501.87, provided the developer can ensure the subdivision layout works with the required cover over the sanitary sewer mains as laid out in the subdivision and site development bylaw. The rest of PID number 72421 will require its own lift station, designed and installed by the developer. Phase 1 and Phase 2 plans are estimated to add 0.6 to 1 megawatts of peak demand onto circuit R9, which will strain its current ability to provide reliable power in extreme weather events. Project R12 is already approved by council and under construction to add more capacity to this portion of the city. R12 will be adequate in capacity for this development's needs. R12 is anticipated to be completed in time for the needs of this development. The applicant will be responsible for providing physical land space to fit needed utility power infrastructure and easements, if applicable. Given requested density and zoning of the infrastructure, the applicant will be required to install partial underground power systems and telecom systems, which will be designed and installed responsibility and the cost to the applicant. The applicant is to coordinate with Summerside Electric, as well as Bell Alliant, Eastlink, etc., as required for this underground infrastructure needs, and ensure underground electric and telecom infrastructure does not conflict with other utilities. These underground systems must be in place prior to Summerside Electric energizing the new subdivision. H, suitability of parkland provisions. Staff comment, parkland dedication is required for a major residential subdivision based on buildable area. At council's discretion, the parkland dedication may be satisfied by conveying land or providing a monetary value. The buildable area of the proposed subdivision is 69,203.7 square meters, or 17.1 acres. There are 11.5 acres of low-density land and 5.6 acres of proposed high-density land. The parkland requirement for low density shall be 5% of the land, so 0.58 acres, or the monetary dedication at $1,750 per acre, or $20,125. The parkland requirement for high density shall be 10% of the land, or 0.56 acres, or the monetary dedication at $3,500 per acre, or $19,600. Total land dedication would be 1.14 acres, or $39,725. The developer is proposing to satisfy the parkland by means of land dedication. As the land being considered is non-buildable area, the land dedication is twice as much, thus 2.28 acres will be required. Staff are conversing with the applicant about providing the Gillespie Creek Wetlands 430, located on PID number 72421, to the city in place of parkland. This aligns with the official plan, zoning bylaw, and the Parks and Green Space Plan. I, impacts on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, the preliminary subdivision approval application does not have an impact on city finances and budgets. J, proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulations. Staff comment, the developer shall conform with all provincial requirements as applicable. And K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, upon the development of the neighboring property, the St. Clair Street development, the speculation of a burial ground being located on the St. Clair Street lands was raised. It was determined there was no burial site on the St. Clair Street development. However, there was documentation that indicated there may be a burial ground located on the subject property. The developer will be responsible to address the matter prior to work being carried out in the suspected area. Staff review. Staff recommend the application from Strategic Holdings, Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 73585 into PID number 73585 into 38 lots over 2 phases. 37 lots are intended for, but not limited to, single detached and semi-detached dwellings, and 1 lot is proposed for high-density housing, 4 to 24 units. Be recommended to be approved by council, subject to the following conditions. 1, the developer shall satisfy all municipal servicing requirements. 2, the developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement. 3, the developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements. And 4, the developer must enter a development agreement with the City of Summerside to defer any subdivision responsibilities. As per section 8.5 of the Subdivision and Site Development Bylaw, the Planning Board shall make a recommendation to Council on this application before it is approved or denied. The Planning Board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for Council for a final decision. Planning Board recommendation, preliminary subdivision approval be granted to Strategic Holdings, Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 73585 into 38 lots, phase 1 and 2. 37 lots are intended for, but not limited to, single, detached, and semi-detached dwellings, and 1 lot is proposed for high-density housing, 4 to 24 units. Be recommended to be approved by council, subject to the following conditions. 1, the developer shall satisfy all municipal servicing requirements. 2, the developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement. 3, the developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements. And 4, the developer must enter a development agreement with the city of Summerside to defer any subdivision responsibilities. Moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder on planning board to second. Councillor Trenholm. And if there are any questions or comments, Councillor Adams.
Thank you. I have a few. First of all, I'd like to table, I had circulated earlier and I gave Brian a copy, and it's the Coastal Hazards Information Platform, and it's what the province uses for the floodplain. And as you can see, there's a good portion of this is in the moderate to high flood hazard. So I want that to be entered into the records.
So I'm just going to jump in really quick, Councillor Adams. I'll just ask if any member of council have any concerns or issues with that, with introducing that document for supporting materials for planning board to look at. I guess it would be any member of planning board. You can just unanimously receive that document, and it can be included in supporting materials. Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to look, you just put St. Clair Summerside in, and it comes up. You can put any address in the province in. I have a few questions. On page 5, where it says both phases generally align, the use of the word generally align with objectives and policies under development control, and where it says development isn't leapfrogging and connect to existing infrastructure on the adjacent land to the east. Can we just get an explanation of what that refers to?
Just one sec, I'll pull up
Okay.
I guess, for example, this section that's in light blue is the subject property. The black lines are the existing sewer system next door, so in the report it was referencing where the existing sewer and they could tap into for that development to get sewer. And again, the red would be the proposed streets for this development. Blue would be an other street network to the west for another development. And the areas here are where it's saying this is St. Clair and Darrach. This development proposed directly abuts existing development. If he was proposing the light blue streets, they'd be saying it's leapfrogging over this existing property. We'd be looking how we're going to get the water and sewer and street connections to the existing ones.
Thanks, Aaron. Then my next one was on page 8 of the bigger paragraph at the bottom. The developer is to contribute to the cost of the lift station upgrade on Crozier. So that is there to contribute to the cost of the lift station that's already there, and it will need to be more adding this.
So I'm going to find that one.
Oh,
I just
sorry,
looked
page
at.
8
No,
at the
the
bottom.
map that showed that last one I had there first.
Sorry.
So when,
We'll go up a little.
but just in this one right here, these black, when St. Clair went in,
Yeah.
there's a lift station down here called Crozier Drive Lift Station.
Yeah.
That lift station was upgraded at the time of St. Clair going in.
Okay.
The land that's in question now will drain to that, so the developer of St. Clair did not pay all the cost for that lift station upgrade. Everybody paid by the amount of area that was gonna drain to that lift station. So the city paid it. It's now would be recouped when this developer develops this, so I don't know if that answers your question, but basically, that catch basin, or that storm Crozier Drive lift station drains that entire subdivision. So when St. Clair came in, they paid based on the area of their land, and then since this land of, used to be the Clark property, since it was able to go to that lift station, a portion of that cost went to, as a future cost recovery to this parcel, so now this developer would have to pay that.
Okay. And then a whole new lift station would be needed to 72421.
Right, we're saying, and when they reviewed it, again, they said some of this area could make its way over, but again, until they do their
Even though
detailed.
that's not in question right now.
Yeah, but even the part that is, they have to verify with their designers at the next stage when they do their drawings. We're saying the area can fit there. If your whole subdivision, when you design it, if it actually ends up draining towards Crozier Street, we're not saying it will. We're saying that area can, and it can be accommodated in that lift station. Your designers will determine that. They may choose to say, look, since I got to put one in over here for 72421, I'm going to put it over here, and I don't have to raise my lots or land up higher. That we're just making them aware of a outstanding charge for that property.
Okay.
And that lift station that was done in Crozier Drive is not large enough to handle all 72421s, the
As
next
well.
abutting property, just because they happen to own it as well. And we're noting that some of that portion can go to the existing station. So we're just trying to clarify before they get into far
Right.
liabilities that they would owe, as well as some design here.
And whenever it says it's requires its own and designed and installed by the developer, but then it's approved by the city, correct? Like the lift station
Yes.
has to be approved by the city.
And then it's turned over to the city and we own it
Yeah,
and we look after it for
however.
forever and replace it whenever it's due to get upgraded or pumps been changed or, yeah.
Okay. So on page 10, where they have the proposed parkland, I guess I have some concern over the proposed parkland is all marsh and swamp. So we're doubling it
We're doubling what he'd have to give as far as a normal area.
because
Yeah.
it's not usable.
Yeah. And I also want to clarify, this is coming from the city, this is not what the applicant is proposing. This is coming from the city's Parks and Greens plan. This was identified in your plan saying in future, when those lands happen, that's identified as a conservation area. And it was in your plan to say, when that develops, we'd like to take over, consider taking over that when it comes time for development. This wasn't proposed by as it's up there, it's saying it's an extract from our
Yeah.
Parks and
Yeah,
Green
it's
Space
of the
plan.
city, yeah.
Okay.
I guess I have some concern because I know before we've had a developer offer to give us like a area that was water.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure what you'd call the little body
Yeah.
of water. But we said, well, no, we don't want it. So they had to either give a monetary or another area. So why would we want to take on this proposed, double this, and it's still not something that the developer could ever build on? So why would we want it if it can just stay as it is anyways?
I
Why
think
wouldn't
the-
we want extra green space or an extra monetary donation in addition to them not being able to do anything with this anyway?
The previous one you're talking about, if there was something that wasn't identified, I'll say on this long-range plan of the Parks and Greens place, staff would coordinate with Parks and Rec and say, okay, this is not on the Parks and Greens Place plan. Maybe this parcel of land wasn't even close to being developed or even in future considered. What do you think? Do you think we want this area for parkland? At that time, there was a lot of unknowns with that body of water, we'll say. Was it, were we taking on liabilities and unknowns, and there was structural issues with the retention property of the holding it, which is why they were draining it. So we didn't want to take on and cause a washout of Water Street, and we owned the property then, we took it over. So that was a decision that was brought forward saying we probably shouldn't take that one. This one was identified, as I said, prior to 2012. I just know that it's in the 2012 plan, which is why we'd be recommending now supporting a development that's abutting when the land would be considered part of that parkland dedication, which was identified in your 2012 plan. So we're just, part of our rezonings, we're supposed to go back and look at all the plans and how they might relate. And so when a development happens, if it relates to the Parks and Green Space plan, we refer to that and say, as per your 2012 plan, by the way, that was the decision of council of the day and staff and consultation, I'm sure, with others.
So, and
And I guess at the time, I can't speak for the group at 2012, but it wasn't all parks that they were taking weren't all going to end up being mowed surfaces. Some of them were going to be natural spaces, some of them were going to be conservation areas, some of them were going to be treed and forest, and others were going to be mowed and structures on them. So there was kind of a mix of things they were considering or looking at for our parks.
right. I guess I brought this up last time this came up. I guess I just have a lot of concerns with making any plans in this area before there's environmental input. And last time this was on, there was another subdivision development on, and they had done the opposite. They went to environment first, and they got the approval. Like, to me, that just makes sense, and it gave me and myself, and I know residents had some comfort that what was being done was permitted, and I know that nothing can be done, even though if we were to say yes to this, they still have to get environmental approval, but sometimes things don't happen that way. I guess I still have that concern about environmental input not being a requirement for them to bring to us. Like, we have all these other requirements that they, you know, the lift station and so on. Well, why can't environment has looked at it be a requirement? That's my, and the residents' concern.
And that purple outline that's
Yep.
on this map,
430?
that may not, the one that's, sorry. That'll be field, or the exact dimensions of that will be determined by not city staff. That'll be determined by, I'm not even sure, it may not be Department of Environment. Sometimes they hire a separate environmental consultant to come out and do what they call a delineation of the limits. And then we as staff say, when that's done, that's to be submitted on your plans for development. So we make sure that there's no buildings within that. So we make sure that that's shown, and then you meet the setbacks from that, so that staff, when they actually go to build on it, or provide we're saying, okay, there's the actual limits of it, so that it's incorporated on the plan. So like the one that was here for you last week, when they were farther along, I guess, and they've had their engineering drawings done. So since they've already had their engineering drawings, they took that risk of spending that money getting their engineering package ready before they had preliminary subdivision approval. Like, if they didn't get subdivision approval, they would have wasted their engineering money. So they kind of went one extra step ahead. And as part of that step, they did identify where the limits of parks and, the wetland delineation is. Yeah. So they'll be required to submit it before they get any development permits. And then that dimensional area will get refined as far as total area required for parks land for consideration.
Yeah, I guess I just look at when you compare the two, one, in my mind, is more environmentally responsible than the other. Like once we lose this, we can't get it back. So that's my and residents in the area's big concern. And another question is, where it says on page 10K, it was determined that there was no burial site on the St. Clair development. But however, there was documentation that indicated there may be a burial ground located on the subject property. The developer will be responsible to address the matter prior to work being carried out in the suspected areas. So I guess, first off, who was contacted to say there was nothing in that specific area?
So when the St. Clair development was going through this process, a budding landowner at the time said, this development, you have to be aware, there's a burial site on the lower part of St. Clair Street. They, being the developer, went to, I can't tell you offhand who's in charge of where burial sites, but they done, through their lawyers, hired who's doing searches of land, and they came back to say, there is no burial site on the St. Clair land. From the verbal description that they proposed or brought forward from their legal counsel, described it on this property being what's subject before us. So when this developer came in, they may or may not have followed a development happening 10 years ago. So we felt it was on us to make sure that that was brought forward so that their legal counsel can search it. They say they have, and they're preparing the documentation to come in. So we just that was there for us to make them aware. We didn't want them coming in and saying, you should have told us it was in a public meeting 10 years ago. And so we were just saying, we don't have the information. It may be in the 10-year-old file, but we still want their loyalty or their team to be aware those claims of a burial ground at this property, and that's for their lawyer to come back and explain out to us.
And just so the public know, because it's sort of, it's one big area down there. This subject property is not the property where there's been some environmental issues.
There's been, to my knowledge, no work done on this subject property.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess one other thing I did highlight is they're also, in this same, I'll say, subdivision, I include the older Lafergie subdivision as well. I noticed when one of the last phases of that happened in the late 90s, there was a claim there as well that there was a burial site of a child, came to find out, I think, there. And even though the subdivision this was the last phase, they delineated where they thought the limits was. So they basically took one lot and didn't develop that lot. And now that's used as an access and a green area that use that access to the park and to the Lafergie Park on the south end. So when you look at the lot layout, it still looks like there's one lot that's vacant, and that's what they did. Team look at Summers in that lot there, so they delineated it and said we're not developing that lot. So even if it did happen to be on here, when they would have to identify that, right?
Yeah, I struggle with the environmental part and the burial ground part, and the parkland proposed part, but, okay, those are all the questions I have.
Thank you. And I would say, Councillor Adams, I think I share your concerns for sure. I don't know, it's not possible, I guess, to have the environmental assessment done prior to the application, Director? It's not.
I don't know if it's possible. It's just not what's currently required, and the timing, maybe it's because of the timing as well. Those assessments are done based, again, I'm not knowledgeable enough to comment, but I know some of them are not done until June, and some of them aren't done based on either their habitat or certain types of, I'll say, plants, or whenever they become more noticeable that they can see them and they identify them. So they being the Department of Environment, or these wetland delineation entities or groups, determine this is the type of year that we can do it. So if not, we wouldn't have things happening until they got those done, and then maybe we'd be coming back in for subdivisions. So we still make it a requirement that comes in before their development happens as part of their individual plans for that site development. But
Yeah, I know in terms of council, it's nice, it would be nice to have that already done, so then we could, I guess, make an informed decision, but.
we're identifying that there is potential to be a wetland on this property, and that not even, I guess, not the part that's for the proposed parkland. We're just saying where there's shore frontage along the bottom here is what we're asking for. We weren't asking for clearly for the parkland delineation to be done, because that's not even on this parcel. That would happen to determine the exact limits. We're just saying where the southern limits of this subject property abuts the bay, we're saying we want to see that delineated to make sure that they know as well, here's what's developable and what ain't.
And in regards to the burial site, it's not listed as a condition in that the developer has to. I noticed it's in our report, but it's not listed as a condition. So if it were to proceed to a council approving, we're not, I guess, in the words, not saying the developer needs to do it in the conditions that are in. Is that?
I'm not sure we as a group have any governance over where or not a burial site is and gets removed or not. So we're just making it a note that we just thought, since it came through us and was raised, not that we wouldn't if it was privately, but it was a public meeting that was brought forward in documentation. We just wanted this developer to be aware that they may have to follow through with something in whatever channels deals with burial sites. It's not the city of Summerside.
Oh, sure, no, but I think as a condition, as we're talking about it, if there is a burial site located on this property and we approve it, then what that's going to, I guess, what's the outcome of that, I guess?
I guess either they're either gonna, again, I can speculate. The developer says that they've already had their legal team working on it. They're gonna provide evidence that whether it's not even on this property, but I said, we're not even there yet. Let's wait till if you get preliminary subdivision approval. But again, like the previous one, they would have to identify an area, or they chose to. Again, I don't know if the means is there that they can, who oversees that, whether a burial site can be moved or altered, or else have to be clearly delineated and not developed. You know?
Okay. Yep. And my only other comment is in regards to parkland. I know I guess, a playground. I know we can see 410, and that's the Wilmont. But if we're looking at, if we go in the middle of this new development,
It's about over here is the Lafergie.
it's Lafergie, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, and I know right now, the city doesn't have, I guess, a guideline or standard on the number of meters. Many municipalities do, so, many municipalities around Canada have 400 to 800. They're somewhere in between.
I think that's noted in our, I could be wrong, I think that's noted in our parks plan that it was 400 or 800 meters and.
It's about 900 meters.
The distance now?
Yeah, I can find it.
Okay.
if you want.
I'm just saying there's, oh, in our, yeah, somewhere's in our, I think
Yeah.
there's noting something in our
In
park
our
plan.
plan.
Oh, in our plan?
Yeah.
About 900 meters.
Okay, all right. Well, then, in that case, then if it is about 900, then Wilmot would certainly fit within that if it's at the mid-range. And like you're saying, Lafergie is roughly, I did a
Okay,
quasi thing, but it would get to a little over 1,000 meters would be from the middle for, to get to Lafergie Park, so.
Yeah.
I guess just to fit that in, discussion, I guess, but yeah, if it is in the Parks and Green Space Plan, that's,
Yeah.
for us to look at.
yeah, I
as
think
well.
if that green one up here is Wilmot one, this is Hillside coming in right here on the screen. So Hillside, you come down right about here would be the existing Lafergie, so that's similar to this 410 would be over.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor McDougall and then Councilor
Yep.
Cameron. Councilor Rob.
Yeah, I think most of my questions have been answered, but I'm still concerned over the burial site. Aaron, just explain to me, if I had a property and somebody said there was a burial site there, what's the process that I have to go through to prove to the city that there's nothing there? And who's,
I say in all my time, I don't know, we've had, I wouldn't be sure of the process to tell them. I would contact our own legal to say, is that even something that the city governs? And if so, we would, yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is, what do they have to show you? A letter from their lawyer?
In this, the last case, they brought forth a letter from the lawyer to show that it wasn't even on that property. And the lawyer did a search through, I'll call it for the St. Clair development. So then they said, they came back with documentation say, there's no mention of it on all the search we've done, and we're actually showing it on the abutting property. So it wasn't a matter for that development. And so if it comes on a development, I'm not sure where we go.
Yeah.
Councillor McDougall, if I could, it's the provincial government that governs and oversees the cemeteries and PEI through the Cemeteries Act, and they would have historical information on that. So that's where, when he proceeds, that would be the avenue to go down.
Thank you. I just want to go back to Parks and Green Space. Just to make sure that everyone understands why that parcel of land was, I guess, specified as important under our current plan, under section 7.3.3 is the new greenways, trails, and boardwalks. And this portion specifically is important because it is a trail is proposed to run along the outside of the Gillespie Creek Conservation Area with viewpoints provided over the scenic tidal marsh area. The trail will continue northward alongside Gillespie Creek and then proceed via existing and new sidewalks across Water Street East onto the Confederation Trail at its junction with the Hall Family Lane. So I think that when we're talking about this piece of land, we also need to realize that it's not just a piece of marshland that we are acquiring with no purpose. There is a purpose for it. That doesn't mean that it currently makes sense to have that purpose. That is from 2012 or 2013. But there is a purpose for having that land, so I don't think we need to look at it as just marshland. We should be looking at it for why we decided we could potentially need it down the road.
Thank you, Aaron, and staff who put together the package here. It's obviously well thought out with lots of details. Yeah, my only couple of quick comments are just one quick question. It's on page 3 of the total package, or page 1 of the recommendation. Just to confirm, the lots delineated there would be where the lot delineations would be on the real property when the subdivision happens. Just looking at,
I'm just going
The-
to go back up to
Yep,
make sure we're
you can go
talking
number
the
one.
same there, Mr. Mayor.
just so we can go up to near Darrach and
Yeah.
St. Clair and look at a few down.
Yeah.
So those, and looking at the east side of the unnamed street. So the properties generally align with generally, a little bit, aligned, at least with the properties behind, existing properties on St. Clair. That's where they are, that's where they would go, right?
That's what they're proposing, a street to go down with lots on both sides, and they would back onto half of the new lots would back onto the existing lots on St. Clair.
So these lots would be, I'm assuming their size on a more detailed plan of some sort.
These are actually small, these are actually smaller than the ones on St. Clair.
Yep.
Because when they bought St. Clair, they had one farmer's field. They didn't, this abutting property owner at that time says we'll never develop. So there was no opportunity to say, I don't need, so they basically put the road down the middle and had extra deep lots on St. Clair. So these new lots are not proposed to be the same size as St. Clair.
So they're
Probably
shallower and a little bit narrower.
Yeah, probably for
Yep.
the frontages, yes, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's all. Just wanted to confirm that they are as they're shown here in front there. And on the wetland delineation, please, like I certainly agree with I prefer to have this stuff in advance, but the fact that it is required, I think, is a positive. And then the last, just on the archaeology and the burial piece, and I'm not an expert in this, but as far as I understand that, again, under the provincial laws here, if you're digging or you're building and you find human remains, you're required to stop immediately, notify police, and investigation takes place. So, so there is a process. You can't just sort of throw them into the green bin, although bones don't go in the green bin for anyone following. That's it. Those are all my comments.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this and quickly, I go back to thinking whether or not it's staff thinking it's a really good plan and if it fits smart growth. And Aaron, I think I would just want to tell you that your position, I was sitting here listening to you and listening to the questions come at you, and I'm thinking that's not an easy position because you're almost defending some of the decisions you're presenting to council, and you have no skin in the game other than doing what's right for the city. So I guess commend you for that, because I know I've pushed back on you, and I think council often push back and probably with good reason, questioning, but I just don't want you to, I just, thanks for the work you do, because it's not easy. And I do feel that ultimately we get to the decisions that we're wanting to get to anyway. Carrie mentioned, wanting the environmental assessment come in first. It probably would make more sense in some ways, but it doesn't help the developer one way or the other if it comes in first or last. He still can't develop on that land if environment says you can't. So I think as a municipality we get there, and I'd be cautious of us wanting to take on too much when it comes to wetland and what's being built on it and burial grounds and just stuff that we don't control. So thank you.
Just the one thing in closing for me, and the concern for me is like the environmental concern, but it's also like you said with the lift station, like we take it over. So the developer puts in these roads, and like this floodplain area, like that's not gonna get any better. Like if we pay any attention to the news, like all that's getting worse. So we're going to be inheriting roads and infrastructure that's built on this. That's like why, I guess, as a city, why I think we really have to weigh the risks we're taking by approving or reviewing things like these and then inheriting future issues when it comes to flooding and roads breaking up and sinkholes and so on, because we know this ahead of time, and like I said, it's not getting any better. So that's why they have this whole program, is so we can watch the regression and make sure that we keep an eye on it. Anyway, so just as as taxpayers, this is what it goes into. We always say, like, it's no fun, the stuff that goes in the ground and the pavement, and like those aren't the fun projects, but also we don't want it just literally be our money to be washing away. So
Thanks, everyone. And I guess just as hopefully what will be a final, some final words, just to remind everybody, I guess, that this is a preliminary subdivision application. It's not, we're not at the building stage yet, we're not at the permit stage yet. The sort of the area that is in question, obviously, is the southern end for the most part. But that parcel, Aaron, is right now, for all intents and purposes, it's zoned right now as
The entire portion below, I think it's R1 stated, and the top portion is commercial.
it's R1. So the sort of the southern section that we're talking about is R1, where there's some flood sort of hazards identified. But tomorrow, somebody can build there. So just want to make sure that we have the task here in front of us, which is a preliminary subdivision approval. So environmental assessments or burial grounds, like that, they're not part of the criteria that we should be considering right now. So just wanted to throw that out there. And on the burial ground part, it is addressed. It says in K, there is an area that has been indicated that there could be something there, and it's the responsibility of the developer to address that before work is carried out. So I'm satisfied that any issues that are there, whether it's environmental or a burial ground, those issues will come up when the time comes for the developer to build. It'll be from the province, but I think that we, as a planning board and as a council and as a municipal issues, our criterias are here, and we are able to vote on them as a planning board as per the subdivision, preliminary subdivision approval. So that's just sort of where I am. Obviously, it's not a decision of council tonight, but I will continue to be satisfied moving the motion, and I believe Councillor Trenholm has seconded, and if there's nothing more, planning board will vote to move it to council. So moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Trenholm. Members of planning board in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed? Councillor Adams. And so that will go to council, I believe, on
Tonight.
Oh, yeah, it's coming back tonight, yeah. Okay.
Thank you, Council, and Councillor Duran. Good conversation as always, and very thoughtful and well put together by everybody. We'll move on to item 6, recommendation 134, Greenwood Drive preliminary subdivision approval, and Councillor Duran, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. And I've just started to experience some vocal things, so hopefully my 1 1/8 glasses of water will take me through this one, which is equally as detailed. So a recommendation for another preliminary subdivision approval for 134 Greenwood Drive. Purpose is to subdivide a portion of PID number 71191, creating 24 lots, lots 45 to 55 and lots 77 to 89. The developer is seeking preliminary subdivision approval for phase 1 of this development. The developer is requesting a deferment of subdivision responsibilities for phase 2 and 3. The planning board is required to make a recommendation to council on this application, and preliminary approval is required by council before the development can proceed. The background: an application was received from 101708 PEI Inc. to subdivide PID number 71191 into 89 lots over 3 phases. Phase 1 will consist of 24 lots. 2 lots of those are intended for high-density housing, and the other 22 are intended for, but not limited to, semi-detached dwelling development. Phase 2, which is 22 lots, and Phase 3, which is 44 lots, will be deferred until a later date. The proposed subdivision and public streets are indicated on preliminary survey plan prepared by Bernard Land Surveyors, drawing number 23012P5, dated January 8th, 2025. The report, as required under section 3.6 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, Council, Planning Board, and the Development Officer shall consider the following general criteria when reviewing development applications under this bylaw as applicable. A, conformity with this bylaw. Staff comment, the subdivision conforms to the site development and subdivision bylaw. The subdivision layout promotes smart growth, making effective use of the land, and applies to the principle of orderly and following. The development will be subject to city standards. B, conformity with the official plan. Staff comment, the subdivision conforms to the official plan. The future land use map for the property is residential. The proposed subdivision will have impact on the Parks and Green Space Plan. The Parks and Green Space Plan from 2012, Section 7.3.2 indicates a future conservation area, the Ice Pond Conservation Area Extension 810, to the existing Ice Pond Conservation Area 190. Section 7.3.3 indicates the Ice Pond Greenway 750 would run from Green Shore Park 330 to the Confederation Trail 400. The Parks and Green Space Plan identified a pedestrian connection from the Green Shore Park 330 to the Confederation Trail. Since the Parks and Green Space Plan was approved in 2012, the city has installed a sidewalk, an active transportation lane from Green Shore Park to Pope Road, the Ice Pond Conservation Area Extension 810. The Ice Pond Gateway 750 will require further review by staff and further discussions with the developer. C, conformity with the zoning bylaw. Staff comment, the proposed lots conform with the zoning bylaw as the land is zoned a mix of medium density narrow lot residential R3R and high density residential R4. D, the orderly and following nature of the development. Staff comment, this development promotes residential growth and is an example of infilling vacant land currently zoned for residential development. E, physical suitability of the site for the proposed development, including avoidance of natural hazards, undue water runoff, or environmental damage. Staff comment, the site is suitable for development. The site has sufficient grade for drainage to Greenwood Drive and connects to existing streets at the high point. A watercourse and wetland delineation for this property was completed in July 2022 to identify any potential natural hazards or environmental matters. No development is permitted within the buffer or the areas delineated unless approved by the Department of Environment. F, compatibility of the proposed development with the present and future surrounding patterns of streets, lots, and services, including conformity with any city concept plans. Staff comment, this development is compatible with the current and future surrounding patterns of streets and services. The development of the medium and high density residential lots is intended to be developed in phases. Phase 1 is intended to be developed in 2025. Phase 2 and 3 will be considered once Phase 1 is nearing full development. The existing public street network and municipal services can be extended to this development. A street connection to Valley Street and Lockwood Drive will be provided to accommodate Phase 2 and Phase 3. G, adequacy of the applicant's proposals for traffic, circulation, parking, pedestrian access, water supply, sewage disposal, and storm drainage, including the adequacy of city streets and services to handle increased loads. Staff comment, the proposed street layout meets conformity to complete connections to existing streets, Valley Street and Lockwood Drive, to allow for through traffic and emergency access from the two existing dead-end streets, Valley Street and Lockwood Drive. Greenwood Drive is a local street which can easily handle the expected traffic from the subdivision. The existing traffic volume for Greenwood Drive from Milk Crescent to Willow Avenue is approximately 3,917 vehicles per day. Existing volume for South Drive from Bayview Drive to Pope Road is approximately 8,715 vehicles per day. The estimated capacity for a city street is approximately 10,000 vehicles per day. The approximate estimated volume from the existing and proposed streets would be as follows. And as before, at the previous application, it just shows the traffic volume from existing streets and for the proposed streets. And to summarize, the total additional volume to Greenwood Drive after this development would be 968 vehicles per day, meaning an increase of 9.68% traffic volume on Greenwood Drive. Yeah, the additional 968 vehicles per day would bring the total vehicles per day to 4,885. Sorry. Upon development of the lots, parking requirements will be determined. There is a sidewalk on the east side of South Drive and an active transportation lane on the east side of Greenwood Drive to accommodate pedestrian access. The city's water supply and sewer treatment systems can handle the loading created by the new subdivision. The city will require an easement for a future sewer main from Greenwood Drive to the rear lot line of 88 or 89. The development can access the city drainage system from the existing storm system on Greenwood Drive. And just wanted to make sure that I note, I mentioned earlier that it would be a 9.68% increase of traffic volume on Greenwood Drive. It would be an increase of 3.6% on South Drive. I just missed that part. H, suitability of parkland provisions. Staff comment, parkland dedication is required for a major residential subdivision based on buildable area. At council's discretion, the parkland dedication may be satisfied by conveying land or providing a monetary value. The buildable area of phase 1 is 36,423 square meters, or 10.2 acres. 5.7 acres of medium density and 4.5 acres of high density residential land. The parkland requirement for medium density land shall be 7.5% of land, or 0.43 acres, or the monetary dedication at $2,625 per acre, or $14,962.25. The parkland requirement for high density shall be 10% of land, or 0.45 acres, or the monetary dedication at $3,500 per acre, or $15,750. The city has sufficient green space, Centennial Park, within 500 meters of the proposed subdivision. The developer is proposing to satisfy the parkland by means of land dedication. The city will review the parkland consideration and advise the developer. Monetary parkland dedication shall be put in a fund reserved solely for acquiring or expanding public parks within the city. I, impacts on city finances and budgets. Staff comment, the preliminary subdivision approval application does not have an impact on city finances and budgets. J, proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulations. Staff comment, the developer shall conform with all provincial requirements as applicable. And K, other matters as considered relevant. Staff comment, power can be made available for the proposed development so long as the developer can provide land space for power lines, which may require easements from third-party landowners and or alterations to existing plans as submitted. The developer is to coordinate power needs with Summerside Electric prior to construction. Pending this coordination, the cost share between the developer and the city will be determined as applicable for utility power. And staff review, technical services staff recommend the application from 101708 PEI Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 69781 into 24 lots. The lots are intended to be, but not limited to, a semi-detached dwelling development. Be recommended to be approved by council, subject to the following conditions. 1, the developer shall satisfy all municipal servicing requirements. 2, the developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement. 3, the developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements. And 4, the developer must enter a development agreement with the city of Summerside to defer any subdivision responsibilities. As per section 8.5 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, the planning board shall make a recommendation to council on this application before it is approved or denied. The planning board recommendation, whether carried or defeated, will be brought forward for council for a final decision. And the planning board recommendation, preliminary subdivision approval be granted to 101708 PEI Inc. to subdivide PID number 71191 for phase 1, creating 24 lots, subject to conditions outlined in the staff review, be recommended to be approved by council. Moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder from planning board. Mayor Kutcher. And if there are any questions or comments from council. And I just want to start by reiterating that this is a preliminary subdivision approval application for phase 1. Phase 2 and 3 should have no impact on this application. I know it's sort of been discussed before, but just wanted to put that out there to make sure that everyone's aware. Councilor McDougall.
Well, I do have a problem with the, like I said before, I don't have much of a problem with phase 1, but the overall plan, when we had the people in here with the rezoning, the developer said that they weren't going to be going straight through. They were going to loop it. That was what they were sold here at the meeting. Aaron, can you tell me if it was the developer that designed it, or was he told to design it that way by the tech services with the straight through?
I wasn't told by staff that I'm aware of. Now, I'd have to go back through you remember the minutes. I don't remember
Yeah.
that exact being in, but as Justin has highlighted, we're dealing with I'll dig it back in blue there, we can. But, no, staff are reviewing this is what came in from the consultant.
Right, but, so where does
So
The
light,
residents-
the light blue is, what's
Yeah,
the phase
I-
one?
Yeah, I know that's what we're doing, and I
Yep.
had said earlier, I don't have much of a problem with that.
Yeah.
I do have a problem with the overall plan, putting 2 streets straight through. They were told that it was gonna be looped. Yes, you could loop the water, and they could do easements or whatever, but as far as the streets going straight through, that's what the developer had said, he was just gonna do a loop. And now we have no way, we haven't notified the residents or anything. And I know that, we're just talking about phase 1 here today. So when do the people get notified and when do they get involved?
Well, I
Or-
guess, notification happens whenever they're a rezoning, which was part of the process. As far as a notification for a development of this property, it only happens through the meeting package getting posted through whatever channels if they apply to do stuff that's, meets the current zoning, there's no individual notification. As far as I'm aware, these meeting packages get presented and no individual landowners are advised of development happening, as long as it's meeting the requirements that's abutting their land.
So if the developer on phase 3 or whatever.
Phase 2 or 3, yep.
2 or 3 comes in and it's looped, then tech services is okay with it as long as they're satisfying the connections through, water and sewer?
And the existing streets, I'm sure I'd have to verify I haven't gone through it in detail to say
Because it was a loop before,
what was presented was a loop.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, but I had talked about this when he was in here before, and he told me that he was told by tech services that he had to put it through, so.
Okay,
That's just what came
I
to
can't
me.
tell you that I
Yeah.
recall it being looped to the first phase,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's
And
or the first public
as-
meeting.
Yeah, and the other part of it is the parkland dedication.
Yeah,
You say a park is over in Centennial, that's quite a ways away from that subdivision.
I'd have to scroll it, but I
Yeah.
assume they're talking with people are going through a connection
Could
to
be going across
Valley.
South Drive and
Yep.
up to Centennial, or Notre Dame Street, I guess would be the other closest
Yeah.
one, right? So
And
it is quite a hike either way.
And I guess in future phases, whether the phase 3 or 2, you'd be looking at, is there gonna be a connection from this? It directly runs parallel to the trail, to the Confederation Trail, so whether you incorporate in a connection from there to allow people to get on that trail system, we'll say, as far as still our parks, and then gain access easier, or,
Yeah,
yeah. But that'll be again, we'll have to look at that when we look at phase 3 or the yellow one that's there. To say, are we gonna make a connection between some of these lots to provide a pathway to access the trail network without having to go on to Greenwood Drive and go up, right?
yeah, I really have a problem with the plan as it's put out here, so, thank you.
I'm gonna go back to Parks and Green Space too. I find, maybe I'm just a little confused. When on page 15, when it talks about, section 810 and how basically it's no longer needed because we've put active transport lanes in, which then goes into, on page 18, when we talk about the suitability of parkland provisions and how Centennial Park is close by. I'm just a little confused as to how we've identified parcel 810 as the Ice Pond Conservation Area Extension, but now we're just willing to kind of give up on that and move away from it when it was identified as something that's important to us. I think there's a big difference between walking on an active transport lane or biking, but also there's a huge difference when you're walking through a natural environment. It's a little bit more appeasing, it's nice, it helps conserve what we currently have, and it's just a little alarming to me how quickly we are willing to just throw that to the side. And it also seems a little odd that we're potentially looking at not using that, but there's no extra parkland dedication to go for what we're giving up as well. I don't know if that requires really anyone to say anything, but I think as we go forward through this process, I think people should really weigh into that and put that in the back of their mind when they're making a decision, when this does come fully to council.
Councillor Cameron, if I can comment, then I think the staff are looking at if we want to look at this 751, I think they're saying the one that's in green is in I'll say a tight, this is still part of that property owner. Like this large parcel that's highlighted in red, they still own this odd shape all the way down to here. So I think they're saying, consider maybe still looking at that little piece. It's the piece that goes across here that was identified in 2012, I think is supposed to follow the conservation, but whenever they did their wetland delineation, it doesn't go straight across to it doesn't follow that path. The wetland delineation actually goes over here. This is all developable land where it was highlighted that it was going to be a continuation of this conservation area. So 810 is really not going to be a conservation area, it's developable land. So they're saying, okay, should we still make a pathway from this location over to the trail? And if it's deemed desirable to actually, and you get permission from the ice pond through this conservation area to have a trail in that. We look at sometimes at there being abutting in the buffer zone, at the edge of the buffer zone. We wouldn't be able to abut it, we'd have to be right in it in this area here because you have to be 15 meters outside of it. So you'd have to get permission to put the trail system right in the conservation area. And if I go to I'll go to another page, then they're saying, okay, if he's still showing, sorry, there's one more. In his street layout, he's still showing a connection to the south into this space. So whether this can get up through here and then either use a street connection to get over to this was deemed at 2012 to thinking there was going to be a conservation area going up through this when it clearly isn't whenever they delineated it. And maybe it should have been highlighted better in 2012 to say that wasn't going to be a conservation area. I'm just going to scroll down there. Sorry, Councillor.
No, that's fine.
Yeah, they got a council area. Even when the zoning happened, they delineated the conservation area, stop it, and the rest be residential. But in 2012, it showed this conservation area going right across when really it's not a conservation area. It's a currently farm field with no wetlands. So there's probably an error or difference in thought there as far as, is it a conservation area or we need to get a pathway connection still through, I'm going to scroll down to that other page. Through the yellow, you want to maintain or try, if you're going to do a conservation parkland trail up through here, you're going to want to put it through this developable area, either through the existing streets or get pathways between lots like identified to get you north to the trail. Only, I guess, if you're going to get this lower green one in place. And talking to some saying it's going to be challenged to get permission to get this trail that was desired in 2012 in the existing conservation. They're saying, okay, was the intent really to make a north-south connection? And since then, now there's been one, yes, different, but it's along the street right here to there. So we're saying that one on Greenwood Drive wasn't anticipated in 2012. And I guess, so that's what the comments, I guess, are back and forth.
Okay, I think I follow.
That's good because it was a lot there. I think,
If you go back, if you go back up to that slide where it shows where
Lots?
a little further,
I'm gonna go one more, sorry, one.
Yeah, that's fine.
There's
So
a stub here that the
so is
the
that where
developer,
is that part, like underneath that stub, is that part of the conservation
It-
area? Like, is that how it changed?
that,
At
these
some
green
point-
lines, we think are the blue is, he's identified through the delineation program, and then the green represents 15 meters outside of that. So he knows his development is gonna stay outside this.
Okay.
The blue is wet, the green is what's be the limits you can actually, so he's basically saying, okay, we can access, again, what you're gonna do in that area, whether you got permission to put a trail in the buffer zone to come around to here, or if you did something off area and behind in future phase, if you wanna say, look, I wanna make this some park area that's less active at just viewing wetland delineation or habitat or anything like that. So we do have one stub out of that you can still define when you get into the next phase. I'll say this pink phase, we want access to this delineated area, or you choose to take some of this. This is not being considered in the current phase. Like this land here is still potentially developable, whether you chose to make that a park or not, or just not in this current phase of what's in here in the, I guess, light green or blue. I'm not very-
Okay, no, that makes sense. It was very concerning when it was going straight through.
Yeah.
But now that is there, it makes more sense to me.
Yeah, like that last segment is now potentially gonna go through pathways or street sidewalks to get you to there. The lower part, if you do go and do it, is gonna be through a tight conservation area.
Okay.
Really quick question, Councillor Cameron raised most of mine, and so did Councillor McDougall, so I don't need to repeat those. Where it says in here the developer will satisfy parkland by means of land dedication, and then that's one of the requirements. So, where's the
So-
land?
That's where they're looking at to see if we can consider,
This section.
they
down
still own the section in green. It's an odd shaped parcel. It was the entire part, and then they stripped, so this section in green is really part of that red subject area. They own this narrow piece here, so do we want to take that as conservation area so it stays in city control and with the ability to potentially make this, I think it's.
No, that's okay. I think that's what you just told
Yeah.
Councillor Cameron, and I
Yeah.
was looking at it myself on my phone, not listening closely enough. So,
Okay.
everything I had questions about have already been asked, so thank you.
I do have a question, because Bruce brought it up, so is there a way that we can figure out if what Bruce is saying is accurate, that they came in with the loop and now coming back with this? I'm just.
And we're still in the, when they go to do phase 2 or 3, we'll be back here asking for a preliminary subdivision for that these two pieces. Right now, we're saying the blue. We can still try and find out what the connection was, but we're not approving pink or
Yeah,
yellow
we're not
tonight.
even there yet, so it
Right.
doesn't matter. Okay.
I guess then just to add one thing, just so it's on the record there, then I would, whenever 2 and 3 comes down the road, whether we're here or not, it would be helpful to know, to provide some kind of traffic count and assessment with respect to vehicles going to and from the credit union place. Because certainly these streets, if they do connect straight through to Valley, would be a path of least resistance for a larger number of cars during certain events. There's no really other way to move. People aren't gonna drive down and around, they're gonna take the quickest route through. So just as a note, that would be valuable to consider.
And just on that, I'm just wondering, why were the traffic counts included? Like the conceptual traffic counts for Valley and Lockwood included for this, even though it's just phase 1?
They just want to give you the overall look and said, okay, that he just did total numbers. I think I have to, or maybe I have to check how many counted up there, how many units, but a lot of times it's done to say, okay, here's the total number. Well, that represents a small portion of what's actually on Greenwood Drive now, or how that affects, not so much the street itself, the abutting street, you know.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, so if there are no further comments, we'll just ask once again, or remind everyone once again, for planning board, moved by myself and seconded by Mayor Kutcher. Preliminary subdivision approval be granted to 101-708 PEI Inc. To subdivide PID number 71191 for phase 1, creating 24 lots, subject to conditions outlined in the staff review. Be recommended to be approved by council. All members of planning board in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Back to your worship.
Great, thank you, Councillor Duran. Thank you, council, for a thoughtful and Good questions and good discussion on all items here, planning board. So with that, we'll adjourn our planning board meeting. We will begin our monthly meeting, but maybe we will just take sort of 3 or 4 minutes, and if people need to get up since we've been sitting for an hour and a half. And we'll resume here at, say, 7:25. Thank you.
Test, test, test.
Thank you, council. We'll resume here. I guess we're moving into our monthly meeting portion of our agenda, so I will call to order the City of Summerside monthly council meeting of April 21st, 2025, here at 7:26 p.m. We'll begin with a motion to move the approval of the agenda as presented from a member of council. Councilor Duran, seconded Councilor Cameron. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, changes, revisions? Hearing none, we'll carry on. At this point, I'll call for a conflict of interest declaration from any member of council with respect to any item before you this evening. Hearing none, we're going to tick right along to item number 2. Minutes. This might take me a second. There's a handful. So I will look for approval of the following meeting minutes of Planning Board. First, a meeting of Planning Board, February 19th, 2025. The minutes of the meeting of Planning Board of March 4th, 2025, and the approval of the meeting minutes of Planning Board of April 1st, 2025. Call for a motion to approve the minutes from a member of Planning Board. Councillor Adams, second. Councillor Trenholm. All members of Planning Board in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any changes or revisions? Hearing none, those minutes are adopted. And next, for all of council, I will call for a motion for the approval of the February monthly, February 19, 2025 minutes, the in-camera March 4th, 2025 minutes, the Committee of the Whole meeting of March 4th, 2025 minutes, the Special Council meeting of March 4th, 2025 meeting minutes, the Special Council budget speech of March 11th, 2025 minutes, the Special Council budget vote of March 27, 2025 minutes, the Committee of the Whole of April 1st, 2025 minutes, a Special Council of April 1st, 2025 minutes, and the in-camera of April 1st, 2025 minutes. Motion to adopt the minutes as presented. Councillor Morrison, second. Councillor Duran, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, all of the minutes are carried and adopted. At this point, we move into accolades and recognitions. It's an opportunity for any member of council to provide accolades or recognitions in the community. Councillor Cameron.
I do have one. I just want to send a big congratulations out to the athletes from the Saltos Gymnastics Club. A few of them have qualified for Atlantics in Newfoundland, so I just want to wish them best of luck and a big congratulations on that accomplishment.
Thank you, Councillor. Great, seeing no other lights, we'll move on to public presentations, petitions, and delegations. The first, we'll invite up Jennifer Darrach for the Natural Poetry Month reading. As I was saying earlier, this is this council's third National Poetry Month. We used to frame this as the Mayor's Challenge on Poetry, which was started by Mayor Nenshi in Calgary a number of years ago. Cities over time seem to drop off the challenge, so I'm going to say that we won the challenge. But one thing that we are continuing to do here is to recognize poets in our community. So with that, I'll have Councillor Cameron, a representative of culture, provide a welcome introduction and biography, and we will take part in one of the most enjoyable parts of the year.
Perfect. Thank you, Your Worship. Each April, Canadians across the country come together to celebrate National Poetry Month, an initiative established in 1998 by the League of Canadian Poets. This month-long celebration brings together poets, communities, and cultural organizations of all kinds to honor poetry and its vital place in Canadian life. This year's theme is family in all its forms, whether it's family we're born into, the family we choose, or the connection that defies easy categorization. This theme invites us to explore the bonds and the shapes of our lives. It's a chance to celebrate, reflect, mourn, and honor the people, memories, and relationships that carry meaning across generations. The City of Summerside is proud to recognize National Poetry Month by beginning our April Council meeting with a poem, something we've done for several years now. This year, a poetry competition was held inviting submissions inspired by the 2025 theme of family. While there was a selection of engaging and heartfelt entries, one poem especially stood out, The Family You Lost by Jen Darrach. A little bit about our poet. Jen Darrach is a local artist based in Summerside, Prince Edward Island. She has been creating art since childhood, encouraged by a supportive mother who always made space for creativity, no matter how messy. Jen draws inspiration from the natural world and the quiet beauty of everyday life. She has been involved in a number of projects in Summerside and Charlottetown, and is currently illustrating High Flyers of Tea Hill, a children's book written by Danielle Metcalf Chanel, to be published by Acorn Press in 2026. Though Jen usually sticks to writing children's books, this poem marks her first venture into poetry. It reflects on the feeling of being away from those who you consider family through loss or distance, and how small moments in life can bring their memory close again. For Jen, things like a cup of tea or the first dandelion of the spring reminds her of her grandmother, whose quiet presence still lingers in those simple, beautiful details. Creating has always felt natural to Jen. It's how she expresses the feelings that are hardest to put into words. Please join me in welcoming tonight's poet, Jen Darrach.
Thank you. The family you lost. Find your family in the gnarled bark of oak trees. See their faces in the chestnuts scattered on the sidewalks. In your tea, brewed dark and bitter, find them in the round winter birds that nest near your window. Your family can be found with foxes with their kits running in the fields. Watch your family grow in the first clusters of dandelions, bursts of yellow in the fresh green. Your family is the salt in your hair. Look for your family when the autumn air brings the smell of frost and fire. In the moonlight, full and bright, there they are, forever, your family. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen, for that beautiful and timely poem. It evoked certainly memories for me, and I'm sure it did for others. Really appreciate you coming in tonight and sharing that. All right, we're going to go to the complete opposite end of the spectrum and go to a technical services briefing overview. Sorry, Aaron, you're not going to be able to keep up.
Your worship.
Yeah,
Are we
absolutely.
able to
Yeah.
get a copy of that so our comms can?
Yeah, I did put a request in
perfect.
even before that we get a copy of that lovely
you.
poem. Thank you, and very fitting to have the family here as well.
Thanks, guys.
Director Aaron? Over to you. Just quick reminder, this is part of our ongoing presentations from city departments. I think we had economic development, we had community services, and now technical services. Director?
All right, thanks. Long time I've seen you all. I guess technical services, what it all, when you see that name, it doesn't really jump out what it all covers, all the different segments of our department. So there's an engineering component. I'll get into these a little further. There's a planning component. Again, another area that deals with development, another sector that deals with building permits and inspection, and then GIS, or Geographic Information Systems, and the mapping. So I don't know if I can just go page down. Yeah. So again, under the engineering side, I guess our municipality is a little unique again from others in that we have our own engineering staff on hand, and other municipalities tend to contract out their engineering services. For me, I see the benefit over a lot of years that if you have a project that's 10, 15 years old, the same staff person high probably worked on it, versus you went to, and even if you went to the same firm again, you may not have had the same staff member that worked on that actual project. So you end up with a lot of continuity and be able to refresh back, so you get a lot of knowledge. So again, on our engineering side, we do look at the capital improvements again for our water and sewer systems that we have in place. And again, that involves, again, looking at new ones that may go in, or replacement of water and sewer mains, as well as, when we say sewer, there's sanitary sewer for all your, I'll say, showers and toilets and sinks. And then there's the storm sewer system, which is really our rainfall runoff. So we call them both sewer systems. Again, our engineering staff look into our wells we have throughout our city. We have 2 major well fields, but we also, prior to having those well fields, we have a number of individual wells throughout the city. I think we probably got 12 or 13 in total. Now we got about 5 in 2 separate well fields, and the rest are still spread out throughout the city. We also have an asphalt resurfacing program that we manage in-house and look after, as well as a new and replacement sidewalk. So again, yearly we can get into more details on those. We also handle, as I mentioned, storm drainage, so we're talking typical rainwater runoff, drainage or maintenance issues, as well as we have a lot of those pipes in the city as well that we have I'll say a very smaller, but still an active replacement program. We are doing one again this year. Again, what was highlighted as one of probably our more popular assets we have is our boardwalk system, and it started back in 2000, 2001, so it's aged. So we embarked on we were obviously doing maintenance as we went along through the years, and when the maintenance got into sections to needing full replacements, we embarked on I think probably a 7 or 8 year replacement program. We're probably in year 4 or 5 or 6, depending on how much money we put towards it. So we're well into that replacement program. So those are the programs that we actually try and look after in-house ourselves, and then we also have some larger or more specialized projects that we as staff, we say we act to manage them, or we act as the owner's rep for the city in these capital projects. So, for example, I had worked on the CUP project, the police station renovation, the city hall renovation. At the back of the day, we called it the West End Beach, or SWEP 2000. So, and then most recently, we're still working on the fire hall project, currently the city hall roofing, the HVAC, as well as the east-west housing corridor. So again, another segment that engineering does as well is we also do traffic data. So again, we're collecting the volumes as well as speeds, and then we try and share that data with economic development or people that contact economic development like to know where I'd like to set up a business, what kind of volumes do you have here in Summerside versus another municipality or town or location, and then we also collect the speed data and share that with our police services as well as any complaints that come in. So that covers a lot of the engineering side. Again, when we talk of planning, you guys tend to see the one component of the planning before you regularly through the planning board, but they also look at the long-range planning. So our planning staff are looking at a 5 and 10 year horizon, trying to look ahead. Again, they need retweaking every 5 or 10 years as well, and either adjusting to current trends or as development is happening. Again, we have a zoning plan, so that has to be reviewed as well. So that's in the planning side, looks at the zoning plan. And again, you guys are familiar because we end up having the rezonings here, but that's pretty much outlining what is allowed where in the city. Again, to a lesser degree, the heritage bylaw, we have had limited as far as development or changes, but this section also looks after the heritage bylaw. I'm trying to, I guess, look out, we'd say, for the heritage homes and assets within our city. And when we're also looking on the planning side, they are planning, like you might have had a couple today, is the subdivisions. Again, what lot sizes there should be, what sizes they are, where there's new lots, where the streets would be, and the various services to develop those properties. So that's kind of the planning side. Then we have, I'll say, development side, which once someone's ready to, property is actually zoned properly for it, and they're ready to go ahead. I guess you can term it, we're here to assist citizens as well as developers. It could be an individual citizen asking about a development for themselves, or a developer coming in looking to develop. They want to develop their property, or, so again, we're going to check, and does it need to be rezoned? Does it have the proper zoning? If it is zoned property, the next step is they're actually coming in with some plans, and we call the development side looks at a site plan review. So basically, I've got a piece of property, they're walking in with a building to fit on it, they're reviewing the size of the building, the height, how far it is from the boundary, is there enough parking, is there accesses, water and sewer to it as well. Or you could have someone that walks in and you have a large piece of property you had a large lot, and now with things changing, you're saying maybe I can chunk off a small piece off my property and create another lot beside me. We call that a minor subdivision. No major services have to be expanded. Or you could be looking at buying a larger chunk that puts anywhere from 6 to 60 lots on it. So that'd be a major subdivision. So that's all handled through our development officer as well. And as part of those new lots being created, once a building is going to happen, they're going to need a new civic address. So it was logical that this person works with the provincial 911 people as far as assessing civic addressing, so they'll create a new civic address, propose it, send it into they'll review it, I guess, with our local fire and police as well, and then send it in for approval to make sure the numbering sequences match what's I'll say the provincial 911 people or group. So then now you have a building, you're ready that they've got their permits and they're ready to develop. Again, our building permits and inspection, we feel we're there to assist citizens that may be knowledgeable and those that maybe are not knowledgeable, that they're getting a project that's being built and gonna be built to our national building code, or if they buy one, they know that it was built to that. So we're also there helping developers to help them with their plans. So, okay, to simplify a very complex thing with the national building code, we break it into two parts. Some referred to part 9, which is the smaller jobs, less complex buildings. Our staff would review those plans, and those would come in from the citizens themselves or the developers, or maybe a local building supply would assist them. So we'd review those plans to make sure they're in compliance with the National Building Code. And then through the course of the construction, our staff would perform 4 inspections during construction. So we'll go out in the foundation, check the foundation. Again, when the building's framed up, then when it's insulated before they put the vapor barrier on, and once when it's done. We're not quality control, making sure the cupboards are nice cupboards and things we're there trying to make sure things are safe and solid for life safety of the people. Like, so we get confused. We're not there saying these colors are this or that, and it's just the life safety of things. So then that covers a lot of the smaller buildings in Summerside. So if you look at some of the larger ones, they're considered part 3. They're more complex buildings. Again, plans are submitted for review. But this time they're coming from professionals, and they could have civil engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers looking at different components of that building. They all submit their own plans associated with that. Our inspector will sometimes still do spot inspections during that construction, either through issues or things come up, or just go and look how things are progressing on projects, or sometimes they're asked by individual designers or issues coming up, or when those projects, when they're ready to start, the drawings come in, the individual engineers that design the electrical, they submit individual certifications to say, I designed this part of the building, this person designed, and they sign off to say that it meets my design. And then when the project is done, we get wrap-up certificates from these individual designers as well to say, I oversaw this construction. So that's really our role to say, look, we're verifying that it was designed, and at the end, that design was oversaw to a certain level from the individual professionals to make sure it matches their design. So then we collect those certifications, and then we issue occupancy. Another component, again, to a lesser degree, is accessory buildings. We still oversee accessory buildings, certain sizes, and where they get placed, and where they are, and what drawing, depending on how big they are, if they end up requiring a building permit, and how big they can be, how close to the property lines, and that sort of thing, as well as, say, fences and signage. I'll say, thankfully, to a lesser degree, we are involved with fire inspection again. And I like to say we're there to assist the provincial fire inspector. They're not based here in Summerside. So if inspections, we do inspect locations where complaints are received. So if somebody calls in a complaint, they think there's a fire issue, our staff do go and look at it. And then they work, I guess what's key, they work with the provincial authority to get compliance if there's issues. So we're basically the local first point of contact. If issues come up, they go over it with the provincial authority and say, this is what I'm seeing here, saves them driving up and look at these issues, and we move forward. So I mentioned GIS. GIS is really our geographic information system. That's the long term. So we have 2 staff that help us with that. Again, we have a lot of data and a lot of plans in the city, and this is our means of keeping it all organized. So when we overlap and show you guys a sketch from our mapping, we're typically here at a planning stage, and we're one layer. I guess picture it as layers and layers of paper. We're just usually showing you guys the lot layout and the zoning. But underneath that, there's a layer just with sewer. I showed just today a sewer system. There's another one just with water, another one with storm, power system, storm lines, zoning, another one just with the buildings. They're there, so if someone walks in to do a building downtown, they're saying, we have no idea what's where. We can go on there, this is our means, it's really our electronic filing system, so that we can actually have that there. We clip it out, send it to designers, they know what they're close to. We also have old projects that happened as well as new projects. When they happen, those drawings, if it happens to be on, I'll pick a new, Corey, if it's on your street, we'll have a project when that happens. We just have a layer called projects and as-built or subdivisions, all separate. Something happened there, we can click on it, pull up the information specific to a project that happened. So if someone wants to, need to do work or inquire about it. So again, that's kind of what that GIS people do. This information is all there in our electronic system. Sometimes, for example, police may need it. You know, they want to use our mapping to come in before we used to say, here's a no parking zone we're looking at or something else. We can provide them a map that they're not trying to create a map. Here's where it is generally in the city. Here's what we're looking at. Sometimes we used to do it before for hunting areas. They'd want to say, well, here's the closest building. There's regulations. We can turn on our building layer, do nice circles for them and say, look, there's the only areas people are able to hunt, you know, without them trying to guess the distances. Or if it was unfortunately needing to do search and rescue, we'd be able to provide maps for them that they can. Again, we try and do stuff to help out recreation, whether it be concert seating or they're looking at parks and where we'd have a survey, where we have existing stuff. We try and provide some. We also have the aerial image that was flown for the city in we did it twice. I think the last time was 2018. So we have a whole nother layer that it just turns on when you go on Google Maps and people click on it. We have our own city flown in 2018. So we have that as a separate layer as well. Again, we also try and collect our electrical assets, our poles, lines, and then how that's divided up. So we again try to help them make sure there's a circuit. If you guys saw one of the plans said, okay, this circuit's getting full, 9, we're now, the city's divided up into 12. With, I'll say in the last month or so, when we're having some power issues, our staff were able to create a electric circuit map to go on our website. So you could click on, I live in this house, you'd be able to click on the map, would identify to yourself what circuit you're on. So if you heard something on a public announcement saying circuit number 6 is going to be on or out, they'd know, okay, now I can find out how I can be on that circuit. It's also valuable for our own staff that they're getting complaints or calls in, they can click on and see which circuit maybe we're having problems with. So again, this is our GIS staff. As I mentioned, we're unique in that we do our own projects to go out. One of these staff members also our CAD person, or it's called computer-aided design. So the drawings that go out, our staff are actually preparing those drawings as well. So this is a busy time for them. We're trying to get all the tenders out in the spring till now, get those tenders out. So that staff person is also doing that. So we kind of take a break on the GIS stuff till we get all the tenders out. So again, these staff can also help assist our operations. So as I mentioned, all the as-built or information that we have, if we find a file with a plan in it, we scan it in, and if it happens to be, again, I'll pick on Corey, it was 2 streets over from him, there could be nothing in front of him. That layer turns on, there's something there, we'll know there's a project, we click on it, we can pull, we're no longer going to filing cabinets or running down to municipal works trying to find the old stuff. They have it, click on it, you can just print off a little area and go and look at something. We're not trying to, so it's, may not be a nice poem like we just had, but we kind of enjoy saving time here and being accurate. So the last part there is also, the old ones where basically it said, I'll pick on Bruce. It was, we know there's a water main out in his street. They didn't really care to say exactly where it was, what side of the street. We just knew there was one out there and roughly what size it is. So we've had our staff doing a verification process where we have our own survey gear now, and they can find it by picking up the hydrants and valves. And they're saying, okay, never mind that it was in this side of the road. It actually is on Bruce's side of the road. Here it is. So we have issues with the staff go out there and they can actually find it easier. It's okay this time of year, but 3 feet of snow on the ground, all of a sudden you're trying to find something. So we can make the information we have more accurate, and it's usually, if they survey it, it's coming back within a dinner plate where it is, so it's pretty accurate. So again, we touched on, I only got a couple more there. As you know, we all have a paving program that tends to be, I guess, more inquiries about and how it happens. Staff drive and rate all the streets every fall. And while they're doing that, the things they're looking at, we have traffic volume I mentioned. We collect traffic data around the city. We keep that to say, so when we're looking at the streets, we know the volume. They're there visually looking to say how much cracking. The cracking and different types of cracking you see are an indication of how much life is left in it or if there's issues happening. If it's already been patched, we know there's been an issue there beforehand and it's been patched. And as well as they're also looking at the ruts in the road and water drainage issues. So those are the criteria that are used to create our payment rating. And then we prepare that list to you guys and we price it up based on the previous year and take a guess if there's going to be an increase or a decrease. and trying to patch a number to it to give you guys a list of streets and various dollar amounts. So once that approved, we then create a pavement tender, and once that tender is awarded, we actually then have some staff that actually supervise the work that's being done, because I'll say in Bruce's area, a lot of the structures are on the shoulder of the road. The water and sewer's over there. In the old town, a lot of the structures are in the pavement, so they have to adjust every one of those. So we need people there. Does that manhole need repair? They'll call somebody. We need somebody that can quickly go and oversee those things and get those repairs. So we bring a seasonal staff in, starts in May and usually goes till the projects are done. So that's our paving, how it happens. We do something similar with the sidewalk, only we rate it in the spring. We wait till, this year was probably, those last snowfalls and everything's mild, and we're trying to clear it. The ground's soft, and we're going over it with big equipment. Worst time for snow clearing can happen because we're the underground, so we want to do it in the spring to see how much that sidewalk broke, how much moved. So again, staff are going out there and they're rating it, and they're saying, when I say a block of sidewalk, not a street block, they're counting how many blocks are cracked, 2 blocks, if there's a toe catch between a slight rise between one and the other. And if the rise is severe, we call it a severe hazard. So we have a rating policy that defines those criteria, and then they get identified off to our municipal services staff for repairs. Again, we do new sidewalks, and we propose where they'll be at budget time. And again, we try saying, okay, are they close to schools, parks, churches, trails? Or we had old sidewalks up so far, can we make connections to make either walking paths or even for operatings when they go up to clear them and salt them? If they can loop around to another, instead of backtracking the same and make it more efficient. And we also try and look at, now a lot of the other criteria have been, I'll say a lot of those have been done. We're targeting more areas that are high densities as well, high density housing, so we can have most number of users, maybe perhaps to use in the sidewalk system. So again, we prepare a list for you guys for which ones are for new, but we also use when we do that walk in the spring, we're saying, if I pick these 4 people and saying there's sidewalks in front of theirs, who has the most breaks per 100 meters would rate as the worst section of sidewalk, and that's why they come before you as which ones to be replaced. So we prepare those lists, figure out a cost to go with it. Again, once that's done, prepare the tender, and then we use that same seasonal inspector to oversee the paving and the sidewalk as well when the on-site work. So this is our staff breakdown, me that you see a fair bit of, and our front office reception and steno is anybody that calls or comes in to try and get a permit done. They try and see Cindy. She tries to walk them through what needs to get done, what information they need to bring in. Then she'll hand it off to our development officer, Linda, who you see lots of here as well, usually with me. And again, she's reviewing the stuff to make sure it meets our bylaws and fits. Again, if it needs to be rezoning or something, sometimes we have a new city planner, Megan, who you might have met a couple times. So we're fortunate to have Thane's replacements. She's got some good experience. Our municipal engineer is Tony. He looks after a lot of times our water and sewer components. Our assistant municipal engineer, Gary, will look after the paving, sidewalk, and storm. So on top of these jobs, they also have to oversee all the developments that come in. So they kind of rotate back and forth. The next development comes in as yours. The next one comes in to be the next person, because there's a lot of work overseeing, for example, like Roy Boat Street. The contracts that are going out, overseeing the construction, dealing with getting all the information in, pricing, dealing with the owners. So they kind of rotate with those major developments, as well as all the staff comment on every development that comes through. So, and then we have one building inspector, as I mentioned, is Mike. He also does some fire inspection. And then we have 2 GIS CAD technicians, which is Mark and Cody. So then we supplement that once with the contracts come out, instead of farming that work out for another outside entity. So we have a seasonal inspector. We had 2 for a long time, and this last year we had John, who ironically is also on our Heritage Advisory Committee, or Heritage Board. He was with us last year, we think coming back this year. And then we've had a pattern then of bringing in engineering students that are in this area if we can. And we're trying to have 2 or 3 based on the volume of work that's going to have jobs for them to do, and hopefully we can give them some experience and maybe get a local one that'll come back to replace one of us when we're ready to go. So that's kind of the overview of our department, and just meant to be, as I say, a recap of what we do and that you may or may not have already known.
Thank you, Director. Any questions, comments from council? No, those, Bruce?
Just one comment from me. Thanks for your great leadership, Aaron. Doing a great job.
Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, that was really informative. It was. I wasn't saying that facetiously. That was informative. That's a lot there, and you went real quick. It was great. I loved it. All right, so we'll move on to appointment to committees. There's no appointments to committees, so we'll breeze through that. We'll move on to number 6, introduction and reading of bylaws and resolutions. Hand this back to Chair of Planning Board, Councillor Darrach. Councillor.
There it is. Thank you, Your Worship. First resolution, COS 25-055. Whereas an application for a major subdivision was received from Forest Sun Development Inc. to subdivide PID number 1170836 into 30 lots. 18 lots are intended for but not limited to low-density housing, 1 to 4 units. 12 lots are intended for medium or high-density housing, 6 to 24 units. The proposed subdivision and public streets are indicated on preliminary survey plan prepared by Sandstone Surveying and Engineering, drawing number 24043L1, dated January 9th, 2025. And whereas in accordance with section 3.6 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, council shall consider the following general criteria as applicable: conformity with all requirements of this bylaw, conformity with the official plan, conformity with the zoning bylaw, the orderly and following nature of the development, physical suitability of the site for the proposed development, including avoidance of natural hazards, undue water runoff or environmental damage, compatibility of the proposed development with the present and future surrounding patterns of streets, lots and services, including conformity with any city concept plans, adequacy of the applicant's proposal for traffic circulation, parking, pedestrian access, water supply, sewage disposal, and storm drainage, including the adequacy of city streets and services to handle increased loads, suitability of parkland provisions, impacts on city finances and budgets, proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulations, or other matters as considered relevant. Be it resolved that council grant preliminary subdivision approval in accordance with section 8.5 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, Forest Sun Development Inc., to subdivide PID number 1170836 into 30 lots, as shown on the preliminary survey plan prepared by Sandstone Surveying and Engineering, drawing number 24043L1, dated January 9th, 2025, subject to the following conditions. The developer satisfies all municipal servicing requirements. The developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement with the city. The developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements. The developer enters into a development agreement with the city. This bears the recommendation of the planning board meeting held on April 1st, 2025, moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Councillor. Resolution COS 25-055, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Cameron. On the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Seeing and hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The resolution is carried. Councillor.
Resolution COS 25-056. Whereas an application for a major subdivision was received from 1011708 PEI Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 69781 into 24 lots. Lots 45 to 55 and lots 77 to 89 in one phase. The proposed subdivision and public streets are indicated on preliminary survey plan prepared by Bernard Land Surveyors, drawing number 23012P5, dated January 8th, 2025. And whereas in accordance with section 3.6 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, council shall consider the following general criteria as applicable: conformity with all requirements of this bylaw, conformity with the official plan, conformity with the zoning bylaw, the orderly and following nature of the development, physical suitability of the site for the proposed development, including avoidance of natural hazards, undue water runoff, or environmental damage, compatibility of the proposed development with the present and future surrounding patterns of streets, lots, and services, including conformity with any city concept plans, adequacy of the applicant's proposal for traffic circulation, parking, pedestrian access, water supply, sewage disposal and storm drainage, including the adequacy of city streets and services to handle increased loads, suitability of parkland provisions, impacts on city finances and budgets, proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulations, or other matters as considered relevant. Be it resolved that council grant preliminary subdivision approval in accordance with section 8.5 of the subdivision and site development bylaw to 101708 PEI Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 69781 into 24 lots, phase 1, as shown on the preliminary survey plan prepared by Bernard Land Surveyors, drawing number 23012P5, dated January 8, 2025. Subject to the following conditions: the developer satisfied all municipal servicing requirements. The developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement with the city. The developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements, and the developer enters into a development agreement with the city. This bears the recommendation of the planning board meeting held on April 21st, 2025. Moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder from member of council. Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Councillor. Resolution COS 25-056, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Adams, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One. I take the ayes have it, 6-1. Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Council. Back to you, Councillor Duran.
Okay, finally, COS 25-057, whereas an application for a major subdivision was received from Strategic Holdings, Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 73585 into 38 lots, phase 1 and 2. 37 lots are intended for, but not limited to, single detached and semi-detached dwellings, and 1 lot is proposed for high-density housing, 4 to 24 units. The proposed subdivision and public streets are indicated on concept plan prepared by Locus Surveys Limited, drawing number 24348P01, dated March 10th, 2025. And whereas in accordance with section 3.6 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, council shall consider the following general criteria as applicable: conformity with all requirements of this bylaw, conformity with the official plan, conformity with the zoning bylaw, the orderly and following nature of the development, physical suitability of the site for the proposed development, including avoidance of natural hazards, undue water runoff, or environmental damage, compatibility of the proposed development with the present and future surrounding patterns of streets, lots and services, including conformity with any city concept plans, adequacy of the applicant's proposal for traffic circulation, parking, pedestrian access, water supply, sewage disposal, and storm drainage, including the adequacy of city streets and services to handle increased loads, suitability of parkland provisions, impacts on city finances and budgets, proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulations, or other matters as considered relevant. Be it resolved that council grant preliminary subdivision approval in accordance with section 8.5 of the subdivision and site development bylaw to Strategic Holdings, Inc. to subdivide a portion of PID number 73585 into 38 lots, phase 1 and 2, as shown on the preliminary survey plan prepared by Locus Surveys Limited, drawing number 24348P01, dated March 10th, 2025, subject to the following conditions: the developer satisfies all municipal servicing requirements. The developer enters into a subdivision construction agreement with the city. The developer shall satisfy the parkland dedication requirements, and the developer enters into a development agreement with the city. This bears the recommendation of the planning board meeting held on April 21st, 2025, moved by myself, and I would ask for a seconder of council, to Councillor Morrison.
Thank you, Councillor. Resolution COS 25-057, moved by Councillor Duran, seconded by Councillor Morrison, is on the floor. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Councillor Adams, and then Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to, and whereas section 3.6 of the subdivision and site development bylaw, council shall consider the following general criteria as applicable. There was a few issues there. There's still an issue with no notification to residents when these things are happening. I know this is just the subdivision approval, and then they get notified after, but I think that they're missing a big part of participating in this whole thing. And another part would be the uncertainty of the environmental sensitivities that are in the area, such as the marshland and so on. And it has come up several times, but possible burial grounds. There's the suitability of the site, the unsuitability due to the environmental issues that keep coming forward. The comments from residents, many residents have concerns, but like they said, they don't get letters, so they don't know until after the fact, so they don't feel they can participate in the whole exercise. The projected infrastructure requirements to the city, it's a given that once something like this is turned over due to where it is in the floodplain, there are going to be infrastructure costs to the city constantly. There's no way there can't be for what it's being built on. And the compatibility, it's not compatible due to the floodplain and the future impact on city finances and the budget. Just like I said, roads, sidewalks, and so on, sinkholes, because of where something like this is being proposed to be built.
I just kind of going through that and what we heard from other members of council, it just kind of came up to me that part of this general criteria doesn't really make that much sense if we're looking at the physical suitability of the site proposed for development, including the natural hazard, undue water runoff, environmental damages. But part of us, we're supposed to also consider proof of conformity with any applicable provincial legislation and regulation. So if we don't have proof that there is no it's physically suitable for that area, I'm a little confused as to how we are supposed to vote on that when it's part of the criteria, but we don't require the information beforehand. Does that make sense?
You're looking at me.
Just in general, like, I just want to know if I'm the only one that, maybe I'm misunderstanding what that means.
I have unknown at this time written beside it too, because it's something we're supposed to consider, but it's something we don't know the result of.
Yeah, I guess maybe that one has never stuck out to me as much as it does now with talking so much about what's going on with wetlands around there and how much there is and the possibility of the flooding. So I don't think that's ever really stuck out quite as much as it does right now, but it just seems like it's a criteria that we can't really consider if we're not asking for that information beforehand.
I wonder if it's acknowledgement that those things are gonna come into play in the ultimate design of it. So I think if I've heard correctly, that nothing will be able to be built on areas that are environmentally sensitive. So that just won't proceed. So I guess that's where I get my comfort with it, knowing that somebody within environment, within the province, is now responsible to delineate, I was trying to figure that word, where housing should go based on any environmental or, so that's where I get my comfort in knowing that this is, again, that preliminary stage and not the end stage where it is decided that houses are gonna be built exactly what's in front of us. Again, I think Councillor Duran mentioned it earlier, it's already zoned appropriately for building to happen in that area, so it's just a matter of figuring out that, which are very important part of the process, but I think it's taken care of in the correct way by having it with the environment. Now, again, maybe that's something we need to look at, whether or not we, in the future, get it to come in first or last, but as long as somebody's maintaining the environment's taking care of them, I'm pretty good.
I would say the wording of that is maybe not what it should be, because when we look at the other ones, like conformity with the requirements of this bylaw, when they submit everything, it must conform with it, but this is saying like proof of conformity, so that like we should be having proof right now. So I would suggest that maybe somewhere down the road that wording gets looked at for that, because right now, if I read that, it tells me that there should be proof today that all the other criteria, like the wetlands and things like that, the natural hazards and undue water runoffs and environmental damages, that we should be able to check that box right now to say it's already been looked at. Yeah.
So maybe we can make one note to get legal to provide some feedback around that language, and the second to potentially add that to their technical services does have a list of what they call the housekeeping list for development bylaws. This should probably go on there. I'm gonna make no secret about sometimes my concerns with some of the language and the wording. Proof of conformity, to me at least, reads just as long as it's not non-conforming, which would be what usually the standard would be. So, but you know, I'm not going to. That's just how I would look at that. But it would certainly be helpful to get that direction from staff. Sorry to use double negatives. That's a terrible legal habit. Further comments, questions, statements from members of council? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Nay, nay, 2 nays, 1, 2, 3, 5 ayes, so the ayes have it. The resolution is carried. Thank you, council. We move into item 7, department reports. We'll get started here. Someone did let me know that I think there's a hockey game on tonight, I think. Apparently the Montreal Canadiens are playing. Is this their first or is their second of 4 games in the playoffs?
First of all.
Straight.
First of 4. No, it wouldn't. We got. How long do the NHL playoffs go? 6 months, so we got a long time to play this one out. So we'll go through the department reports. I'm just, if it's okay with council, I'd like to sort of give you my quick. I put in mayor's report here. This is something new I put into the agenda because I thought it would be a useful way again to share information that's happening. But I didn't write it down. I just thought I'd provide it orally. But I thought I'd just put it at the end because people do want to get out of here. If that's okay. Everyone all right with that?
Yep.
Doing it at the end? Okay. So we'll proceed with finance to start with finance. Councillor McDougall.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll give my Reader's Digest version here. I have a report by Director Kristen McDonald, and I just want to note our 2025-26 capital and operating budget were approved April 27th, and they've been submitted to government. A PEI is required under our Municipal Government Act. We're preparing our annual audit and expect financial statements will be presented in late August or early September. And based on goods things recorded to date, we're forecasting a small surplus, and we don't expect that to change a whole lot. Just a note, disconnections have commenced from we don't disconnect in the wintertime, so they have commenced, and if you're disconnected, then you should come see us. And also the overdue utility accounts receivable as of April 16th show a decrease for February, and it's less than that was reported at this time last year. And any customers with overdue balances strongly encouraged to call one of our customer service representatives at 902-432-1230. And over the next number of months, Finance Committee will be focusing on debt service policy and capital planning. Thank you. Go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll call on Representative Trenholm for Community Services and Tourism.
Well, thank you. So the community service report, the Summerside Dome. In March, the Dome hosted a variety of regular user groups, as well as new organizations making use of the facility. The month also featured numerous birthday parties and daily programming throughout the March break. As the regular season draws to a close and many user groups prepare for a transition to outdoor activities, the facility continues to maintain a full schedule of user group bookings through April and May. Active Living Summerside is going well and it's underway. Planning for the annual Shipwrights Run, the largest event of the year, held in partnership with Atlantic Chip and the PEI Roadrunners. The event aims to deliver a well-organized and memorable, it's too late for me, experience for participants of all ages and fitness levels. In addition, preparations are ongoing for the final 2 professional development days of the school year, as well as a range of seasonal activities, including Earth Day and International Bike Day. Looking ahead to the summer months, a full schedule of free and engaging programming is being delivered at Legier Park. It's always enjoyable. Confederation Bridge Aqua Center. In March, there was a sensory swim and an inclusive swimming experience for individuals with sensory sensitivities. Staff also participated in the Family Place Baby Show, offering information and resources about swimming lessons to attendees. Registration for the spring swimming sessions took place during the month, with classes filling up pretty quickly and successfully. Aquafit participation remained strong with a total of 630 participants throughout the month. Spring swimming lessons began on April 5th and are progressing well. The Bronze Cross course also commenced on April 7th, with instructions being delivered in-house. I never quite realized how many words start with the same letters, and then it gets later at night. They all go together. So green spaces. Spring and summer operations have officially begun, with staff actively engaged in litter and garbage cleanups across various locations throughout the city. Park checks are currently underway at all city parks, with maintenance being documented for follow-up actions. A boardwalk inspection has been completed, and the RFP for seasonal boardwalk maintenance and repairs for this coming season has been submitted. So SETS has been successfully hosted Hockey Canada Rival Series at the Cup. The event welcomed a sellout crowd of over 4,000, with Team Canada securing a win to close out the series. And planning efforts have intensified for the 3 upcoming national curling championships. Okay, so that's already happened at the Credit Union Silver Fox. Staff have engaged in weekly calls and meetings with Curling Canada to ensure that event went really smoothly. SET staff are also presented to the Summerside Rotary Club, offering an overview of the organization's strategy and outlining upcoming events. Okay, and additionally, the first host committee meeting for the Noah Dobson's Hockey Fest was held. Registration is now open with over 50 teams already signed up. Further details are available at creditunionplace.ca. And then there is a summary of how exciting the Curling Nationals delivered. I'll just give a couple points here. Over $5 million in terms of estimated economic impact, almost a little over 17,000 fans, and 300 hotel rooms, and it goes on and on. So essentially a small city showcased on a national stage. So thank you for the report.
Thank you, Councillor Trenholm. Move on to Councillor McCollum, who is not here. Does anyone? She's on visiting family in Ontario. And Councillor Cameron to read in for Councillor McCollum. Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Back to my roots of human resource. I think this is my first time that I'm not supposed to be reading for human resources. I'm already back here. There are currently 2 live ads for positions within the city: the Chief of Police and a contract for grant proposal specialist and policy writer. We are currently in the process of setting up interviews for an assistant cultural programmer, and we've also worked through the posting of hiring process for our green space seasonal staff for the 2025 season. Director Kendra Gunn says she cannot wait to see green with a smiley face. The arrival of spring comes the opportunity for students within our community to apply for summer employment with various departments. We have already hired 3 students in the technical services, and we'll be hiring 7 students within Culture Summerside. We also have OJT students working with the line crew in municipal services, so welcome to all those students. Sarah Barrett was promoted to the cultural programmer, so congratulations, Sarah. A warm welcome to Gavin Craig and Jonathan Palmer, who commenced working with police services as probationary constables. Also with our police services staff supported leadership in reviewing applications and interviewing candidates for the candidate sponsorship program, which we will see 2 additional sponsors cadets entered into police academy, one in July and one next January. Another warm welcome to our new planner, Megan Williams. She started in February. Rankin Noy was hired as a semi-skilled laborer with municipal services. Lance Ellsworth was hired as a semi-skilled laborer at the wastewater treatment plant. So welcome to the team, Rankin and Lance. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. At this point, we'll move to Councillor Morrison, representative for Municipal Services. Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Public Works, Water and Sewer Utility highlights. Operations Group has started doing some right-of-way repairs where possible in the large debris cleanup. The right-of-way repairs will start in full mode in May, when topsoil and grass seed will be available and suitable to grow. All right-of-way repairs are expected to be completed by the end of May. If there are any outstanding items of concern after May, please contact the Municipal Service Department at 902-432-1268 to identify the repairs needed. Center line painting along with crosswalk line painting is scheduled to start in May when the temperatures rise and weather improves. It will take 3 to 4 weeks to complete the center line painting before the end of June. Electric utility highlights. The draft report for an upcoming decision of electric generation investment is to be tabled in May. Another open house is expected in May to deliver the draft report to the public and to show the community the options of investment. There will be a Summerside electric outage this week to allow Maritime Electric to reconnect a replacement transformer in Sherbrooke that failed in February. The details of the upcoming outage can be found on the city's website under Power Outage. The Meadow Heights subdivision improvement work was started in February and will continue for the next month. Electric customers should see improvement to its power quality and reliability in the area, and I'd like to thank Director Ray Goody for that report.
Thank you, Councillor. With that, we'll move back to Representative Cameron for Arts, Culture, and Diversity. Councillor?
Can I just ask Rick a
Yes,
question?
absolutely you can.
I
Councillor,
won't,
I'm sorry.
be long, sorry.
Yep.
I'm okay.
The line painting and any painting, what was our decision in the budget? Is that all being done by city staff, or were we outsourcing some of that like we did last year?
It's the same as last year. Excuse me. We'll be outsourcing portions, and then existing staff will do the remaining work.
Right, perfect. Somebody had asked me, and I
Yeah.
wasn't sure we were doing it the same, but thank you.
Sorry, Councillor. I should have left time for questions too.
No worries.
No, that's a good question. Councillor Cameron?
All right. The following report captures some highlights of Culture Summerside's activity from mid-March to April. Culture Summerside staff are preparing event details for the Old Fashioned Carnival, Summerside Lobster Carnival, weekly concerts in the garden, Summerside Pride Week Walk and Community Barbecue, and Diversity. In 2025, the Wyatt Properties will also be the host of our community's first Latino Festival, being organized by the Latino Association of PEI, and that will be on July 26th. In addition, Wyatt Heritage Properties Incorporated and Culture Summerside are also preparing for the 2025 Summerside Arts Festival scheduled for early June. New events are being added to the Arts Festival, and this year includes an art battle and auction at Evermore, bucket drumming and puppet making for children, makerspace sessions for children, a downtown art market and demonstration, interactive magnetic art sculptures, a creative classroom series for schools, a neighborhood art project activity at Hillcrest Park, fiber art bee, acoustic night at Lafergie, and live painting events. Returning festival favorites include artist workshops, art exhibits, and artistic programming. Performances and sales by partnering community arts organizations. Planning is ongoing for the Summerside Lobster Carnival. We are preparing to accept parade entries, volunteers, and sponsors and competitors in the various competitions. More information for the Lobster Carnival can be found at summersidelobstercarnival.ca. And we are currently featuring the work of Chris Mullins in an art exhibit titled PEI Then and Now at the McNaught History Center. The exhibit can be viewed through April and May, and I did attend the opening for that. It is very well done. And this painting of Rainbow Valley is my favorite, as well as one at Greenwich Beach, because it's my favorite beach in PEI.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. We will move to Technical Services Representative, Councillor Duran. Councillor.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, and I'll just begin by thanking Director Aaron McDonald, who was here earlier this evening giving his presentation on technical services for preparing the report. Preparations for the 2025 construction season continue. Our staff are preparing tenders for items in the 2025 capital budget. Staff have started designing a number of projects and tenders for some of these projects that will close in April. And this work will continue over the next couple of months until all projects have been tendered. The third tender for the East-West Housing Corridor project will also be issued in April. Staff typically have a city map showing the locations of projects planned for this upcoming year, and we'll have this information added to our city website and then continue to update this information on the website as projects proceed throughout the season. 16 building permits with a value of just over $2.54 million were issued for the month of March, for a year-to-date total of 27 permits and a value of $5.56 million. We issued 8 commercial permits consisting of 6 new cabin units, 1 change of use, and 1 commercial fit-up, and 1 institutional permit. On the residential side, we issued 2 permits for single-family houses, 1 mini home placement, 2 accessory buildings, and 1 garden suite. And we also issued 1 sign permit. We have one of Bruce's birdhouses to put up here once the spring hits, and it's so big I think we might need an accessory building permit to put it up. The traffic lights for Greenwood and Pope are temporarily scheduled for installation on May 5th, pending, just going to make sure that the contractors are good with the timeline and that all the materials are included with the shipment. So hoping for a May 5th installation on those. And that's all I have this month. If there are any questions, I am here.
Thank you, Councillor Duran. We'll now move to Deputy Mayor Snow, Representative for Economic Development and Growth.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start off by thanking Director Mike Thuska for the report. The full report is available in the packet if anybody wants to check the whole report out. Just some highlights though. The Atlantic Canada Clean Tech Award. The City of Summerside has been recognized with the prestigious Regional Clean Tech Award for Foresight Canada, marking a significant achievement in sustainable and clean technology innovation. The announcement was made at Foresight's Atlantic Canada Clean Tech Awards event in Halifax, Nova Scotia on Monday the 14th of April. Summerside was selected for outstanding leadership in clean energy innovation and sustainable development. Some notable EDO factoids. Year-to-date commercial building permit value is 50% higher than residential. This is a very rare occurrence and a welcomed achievement as we continue to diversify our economic base. We're a month away from launching our 2 new labor champions profiles, ADL and MDS Coatings. Both companies had significant announcement recently that will lead to long-term growth and hiring. 6 businesses opened year to date, representing about 80 jobs. Current Summerside business count is at 765 businesses. Current commercial vacancy rates are retail 3%, office 5%, industrial 5%. In 2018, these numbers were 9%, 14%, and 7% respectively. Approximately 188,000 net square feet have been absorbed since then. This concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Snow. Those are some really great numbers there. We'll move to Representative Adams for Emergency Services and Communications.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll start off with Fire Services, and thank you to Ken Culleton. Summary of calls during the month. Firefighters responded to 33 calls, 10 medical first responder, 21 silent alarms, and 2 general alarms. Firefighters took part in 195 hours of training in March, and the 4 newest recruits have begun the final phase of reaching the level 1 firefighter. They're going to spend 50 hours at the PEI Fire School doing outdoor field training. And it has been confirmed that Summerside will play host to the 2025 Maritime Fire Chiefs Convention that will take place during the first week of July. So welcome to them. And In your package, there's a breakdown of the calls. And that's sort of interesting to see where a lot of the time is spent. Some of it is spent there, unfortunately, when it probably could be avoided, but we had asked, and so they do keep a detailed logbook, so if there's any further questions on those, we can send some questions along. And Chief Walker for Summerside Police had put together some information. They had 2 members attend a police tech conference and expo in Mississauga, Ontario. One of the members who is on the board for the PEI Crime Stoppers worked a booth at the Provincial Home Show in Charlottetown. Our major crime section attended Three Oaks and SIS as part of a presentation on sextortion. It was in conjunction with a parent who lost a child who died by suicide after being a victim. This was an excellent opportunity to focus on education and prevention, and it covered what to do if targeted and provided resources for those who may be victimized. 2 of the staff attended the Summerside Rotary Library for a community event that involved painting with young children. The event went extremely well with 15 to 20 kids in attendance, and this was an excellent opportunity to build rapport with the community. Constable Mallory Metallic was a guest speaker at the Indigenous Knowledge Education Research and Applied Studies course at the University of PEI. Her presentation was on municipal policing off reserve. Our staff was quite busy during the month with training on use of force, critical incident response, and domestic violence training. And Chief Walker attended the Acadian Chamber of Commerce Entrepreneurial Gala with their honors Dr. Solomon and Marie Solomon Dunn as their aide-de-camp. And that's all I have.
Great, thank you, Councillor Adams. As I said, I put in this report here, so what I tried to do is just do a quick summary of the last month that didn't involve pouring tea and cutting ribbons. And so I'll just run through this, and if there's questions, we can do them now, or at least they're there, and we can talk about them later. Also, I just did this up. I'm going to present this orally. The other piece I put down here is council vision and committee discussion. I don't really think we have enough time to get into that. We've been here for 4 hours, so we'll continue to look for a time to do a follow-up sit down with council and try and focus just on that, but I'm cognizant of everyone's time. Quick little summary of things noted here. The Maritime Electric matter continues, although we are sort of waiting for further meetings and communications with primarily the provincial government at this point. We're back and forth, and hopefully we'll continue to move that file along because the underlying issues still remain. Following up on Councillor Cameron attended the Prince County Horsemen's Club AGM, and after that we were sat down myself, CAO, the PCHC representatives, as well as representatives from the PI Harness Racing Association, and talked about at least the initial steps towards moving towards a new long-term lease for the Summerside Raceway. The parties agreed to go back and put together some options for each one of the organizations, and the goal really to ultimately bring something forward that creates a long-term sustainable solution for the success of harness racing here in Summerside, and actually focus on, like I said, put some of the harder work into figuring out the long-term solutions and predictability for the Summerside Raceway, as well as working to address some of the more urgent matters. Met also with Boys and Girls Club and Generation XX, completed the signing of the agreement on the community grants funding. Those two organizations are still working together to identify a project between them that they will do in collaboration. And I think we gave them a week. Kristen? Is Kristen still there? Yeah, another week. A couple of weeks. They had some options, so they're working on that, so that was positive. A couple other things of note and interest. The John Howard Society has gone through another gate with respect to looking for to getting a new program for addressing youth homelessness in our community. It will be the first of its kind in PEI, and we've worked closely with the JHS for a couple of years now. And so we're looking forward to hopefully seeing John Howard Society have some success there to assist with housing issues for our unhoused youth. Attended of interest here, the PEI Business Summit that was put together by the Charlottetown Chamber of Commerce and a few other organizations. One of the takeaways from that was, and now we're working with Economic Development Department to look at whether or not there's an opportunity for us to find some opportunity in all of the uncertainty that's going on south of the border, and creating some local solutions for local businesses, increasing the local B2B network, also improving, driving more local spending in our community, but really putting it out there to the business community, both the organizations, but also the businesses themselves, for ways that our community here in Summerside can be adaptive and creative, and can find opportunity where there is disruption. A couple other quick ones at a meeting with the folks opening a new MRI machine. So I don't know if there'll be something coming to council on that. We're trying to work around some, an MRI machine uses a lot of power. So I'm going to really simplify this. We had to get some new equipment, new transformer type equipment to come in. So we're trying to figure something out to be able to get that up and running as soon as possible, and doing, I think, again, city staff going above and beyond in terms of accommodating businesses who want to invest here and grow here. The other two, also Gen XX, following, there was a council presentation maybe a month ago. The direction was for Gen XX to follow up with Kristen and I. They came in with some financial asks around that capital project, so that'll be coming back to council. As well, Boys and Girls Club is exploring potential options up on East Drive as well. So again, something will be coming. They're working with staff right now, and something else will be coming to council at some point, I'd anticipate. Couple others here coming on Committee of the Whole in the next little while. One would be Evergreen Village. Evergreen Village, I don't know if you've heard very much lately, but I was up at Evergreen Village a couple of weeks ago. Not much has changed. As council recalls, when the matter really caught fire here maybe 6 months ago, Thane in Department of Technical Services prepared some options for council to look at, not in respect of just Evergreen Village, but how we deal with mobile home parks as a whole. So I'm going to bring that information back to council, and we can parallel track that with what is possible for us to do with respect to looking out for the residents of Evergreen Village. Like I don't know who's been up there lately. Like the roads are, in some points, almost impassable. You've got family members you've got some residents who have passed away, and their estates now are wondering what's happening. You have new people moving in, so that remains an issue that where there's not a whole lot for us to do, as we've done all that we can. I think there's some more work, so that'll come back to Committee of the Whole. The other SRDC, so we got back to the province on, again, this back and forth drafting for the proposed possibility for bringing back SRDC in some form or fashion. Again, that's all scheduled for Committee of the Whole as well, and I have a meeting with the Deputy Minister, I think tomorrow or the day after, to go over the latest draft. The Lands Act, I think everyone was involved in the email correspondence, so thanks to JP and legal staff who got our public comments in on time. We had our joint council meeting, which by all accounts I think went well. Sometimes people don't tell me what they actually think, so everyone who told me, they all said it went well, but if you didn't, let me know and we can try and figure out how to do it better if we do it again. But all in all, I think it was really valuable. And really, it's only been a month here with our new CAO, acting CAO here, JP. Seems like a lot longer. He's still here. He's made it the 30 days or whatever it is. So that work is ongoing, but JP's been doing an excellent job. And also, I went on vacation. So that was my quick summary. Yeah, shoot, Bruce.
Just wanted to remind everybody, the Federation of PEI Municipality AGM is in Summerside on Monday, April 28th. So if you can pop in, that'll be great. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mr. President. With that, anything else? All right, Council, we will adjourn our meeting. Thank you, everyone, for a